Alright, hey guys, Tristan from Millennium Duelist here with a very special deck profile for you guys today. Today I'm actually going to be showing you guys my Evil Twin Dogmatika build. This is a deck that I've had a lot of fun with playing. It's been very successful in testing against a lot of the meta decks right now, and I think it's very underrated. I think if you go to a locals with this deck, you'll be pleasantly surprised with the results. It is just very good as a control style deck. And I mean, in the OCG, that's kind of where the idea for it came from, right? Is that people play Dogmatika and Evil Twins side by side just because they are so good at what they do together. And I know that the TCG kind of shied away from that a little bit with Eldritch, so people haven't really played this version of the deck. And I think that is very sad. I think it is very good. I'm very excited to show you guys the deck list today. And yeah, let's just get right into it. Alright, so starting off our deck profile, we're actually going to be playing 3 Live Twin Kill and then 3 Lilla. If you're familiar with the Live Twin package, this is pretty standard. It was a really hard decision not to play the Treat, and I know the Frost is coming in the next set, but these cards are all that you need. Seeing one is seeing both, so you're playing 6 of them in a 40 card deck with a little bit of card draw in the deck too. So odds are you're going to be seeing one of these. It's almost like the Alistair of this version of the deck. Typically it's going to be getting hit with a lot of your opponent's interruption. But we do play a lot of cards to circumvent that. I think in theory Treat is good and Frost is good because they do let you play through those. But you do have to see them, and right now, without that spell card that they just revealed, the Searcher, it's definitely not worth it. So this is probably never going to change. You're always going to play 3 of those and 3 of the other twin. But going into the second half of the deck, actually, is just going to be your Dogmatika package. So triple Ecclesia, double Floor, and 1 Maximus. And so a lot of versions of Dogmatika right now do play double Maximus, and I think that is correct for their versions, not necessarily for this one though. So Maximus isn't going to be, in this deck at least, sending your App Cologne, sending your Shaddolls to get you different effects. You're not going to be plussing as much off Maximus as you would in a deck like Invoke Dogmatika. In this version of the deck, typically you're sending Titaniclad to set up your end phase going first. You're also sending things like either Omega or the Adagnister Pegasus to kind of set up your graveyard, set up more interruptions for your opponent to play through. So for that reason, I think Maximus at 1 in this deck is perfectly fine. Of course, Ecclesia is going to search any of these cards, but then double Floor is something that I've seen a lot of people shy away from because Floor, they say, is kind of a brick, and I do agree to an extent, but in this version of the deck, the Live Twins do have a problem putting out damage, actually, so you can control your opponent and slow them down for as long as you can, but you will need to kill them eventually, and that's what double Floor is there for, as well as being a hand trap, to interrupt your opponent. And the reason these cards are so good together, really, is because you only need to see one of them, right? So you need to see a Nadir or an Ecclesia, and then a Live Twin, and then your full kind of board is kind of online. And it does leave a lot of room for hand traps, which is what we're getting into next. It's going to be triple Ash Blossom, triple Phantasme, and triple Droll and Lockbird. So these are my hand traps of choice. I think Nibiru could also have an argument for being in the deck list as well. We aren't playing it though. I think Droll is strong enough to stop an opponent's turn, to slow them down to your pace in which this deck plays. Phantasme is there to kind of unbrick you a bit. Occasionally you will brick with this deck. I know statistically you should be seeing both your engines, but almost in the same vein that Invoke Dogmatika can kind of sometimes brick, this deck can as well. So Phantasme is there to kind of help with that. And then Ash, of course, being just the most generic hand trap, whom probably will be played till the end of time. But that's all the monsters. That's 21, I believe. And then going into the spells, we're playing, of course, the 3 Nadir Servant. If you're playing Dogmatika, you're playing these cards until they get hit. And then for drawing cards in this deck, we're playing Double Desires, Double Talents. You can't really play Prosperity because your Evil Twin, the Link, is going to draw you a card, so it's kind of a little counterintuitive there. But this felt like the right ratio for me. The 2 Desires is there because you don't want to really resolve more than one, so you have the other one just so you can try to see it. Talents is there because typically, like I said, your live twin is going to get hit with some form of interruption, and if it does, typically you're going to be ripping that card out of your opponent's hand so that they're playing with 3 cards. On their turn they'll draw a 4th, but as a control deck you have a lot of answers to what they're doing, so you setting up against them that way is very good, and knowing what they're about to do, right? Knowing their hand info is very important. You can draw 2 off talents if you'd like. Really, it's only good if you don't see any monsters. As long as you see a form of Dogmatika, then you're probably okay to just rip a card out of their hand. But yeah, as a control deck, if you resolve more than 1 desires, you're typically running out of cards. So a little counterintuitive there. But to round out the spells, we're playing double Cyclone so we don't lose to mine. I mean, it's really good against the format in general. Eldritch spells and traps, of course, are really good to hit. Yeah. And then the one Called by the Grave. If they do try to hand trap your live twin, you open the one Called by. It feels good. I'm kind of sad it's at 1. And that leaves about 9 cards left, and these are going to be the traps of the deck. So we're actually playing 3 Dogmatika Punishment. This card is insanely good, especially for this deck, because typically your evil twins are only going to be going off turn 1, and then they can revive themselves back from the graveyard, so you're not going to be going into your extra deck that next turn. Like, you can, and it is good because you'll make things like Abomination and the like, but if you're able to Punishment and double pop their field, or if they start to out-resource you a bit, popping one of their cards and letting your Titaniclad special your Ecclesia in your end phase, search another Floor, something like that, is very strong. So you definitely want to see this card, and it's not bad in multiples just because you can search it with Ecclesia, of course, but hard drawing it so your Ecclesia can search something else is also strong. Next is going to be 3 Ice Dragon's Prison. This card also insanely good right now. I was just thinking of maybe the traps that you'd play in this deck, and we want every card to be worth its value, right? And that's what you're doing when you're playing a control deck. So 3 Ice Dragon's Prison, this card nets you so much advantage. And then the last card is actually going to be 3 Infinite Impermanence. Another hand trap, so I guess technically we're playing 12. But Imperm right now does hit most things. It wasn't very good last format, but right now it is very strong. That rounds out the deck. For the most part, we're playing 3 ofs of everything, so a lot of your hands are going to be pretty much the same in most of your games. Going into the extra deck, we are playing 2 Evil Kissekil, 2 Evil Lilla. I haven't found that you've needed more than this. There could be an argument for maybe 3 of one of them, but we play Omega, so Omega can kind of recycle them if you need to, but really you're doing this turn 1 to kind of set yourself up, and from then on you're kind of reviving them back from the graveyard when you can. And then we play a lot of 1 of links, so we got 1 Phoenix, 1 Unicorn. When you get locked into Fiends, these are kind of your go-tos. These cards, nothing needs to be said. They net you a lot of advantage. And then we're actually playing 1 Lingeribo and 1 Almirage. We play these because our evil twins, or our live twins, can make them when they get interrupted. So, Gamma really hurts this deck, but getting Ash, getting Veilered, getting Impermed, you can still at least make a Lingeribo, make an Almirage, depending on what your matchup is looking like, and then go off with your Ecclesia special summon, set up some kind of back row to kind of play against your opponent. The last link actually being Abomination here. This card is very good, a lot better than people give it credit for, and it's typically what you're going to be making with your 2 Evil Twin cards if you don't resolve like a punishment or something like that on the next turn, just to kind of out-resource your opponent by popping everything that they play. Going into targets for your Nadir Servant or your Maximus, we're playing Omega. Recycles your cards. Adignister is another form of disruption against your opponent. A lot of people will forget that this isn't in your graveyard, and then you'll be able to resolve it and just kind of blow them out of the water that way. It's a very good card, and it was a card that was originally played in a lot of Dogmatika builds, but people have been cutting it, because they're playing more Shadal packages and things like that. But in this version, you can afford to play it, and I still think it's good. We're playing double Titaniclad. A lot of decks will only play the 1, and that makes sense for them. But again, like I said, this version of the deck, you're grinding through your opponent's resources. Odds are you're probably going to resolve both Titanic Clouds in your game. It just nets you so much advantage that you really do need to see the second one, and then the double Natis there for the pops. That kind of rounds out the deck list, though. There's not a lot I would change after testing with it. I think it's very as good as it's gonna get, I think, until the Evil Twin Search card comes out. But I do appreciate you guys tuning in. I think if you do try to give this deck a whirl, go ahead and comment down below what your success rate is with it. I think it is very strong, and I've had a lot of success with it myself against a lot of the meta contenders. Be sure to subscribe to us if you would like weekly deck profiles from us over here at Millennium Duelists, and I will see you guys later.